All right.
Nice.
And we're here.
And we're off like a herd of turtles in a rainstorm.
Is
that a saying that you
what?
guys have? No, that's not a thing? I don't know
No.
where that comes from. I feel like that comes from a children's book, and then my mom used to always say it whenever we would be like driving on a road trip.
Okay, I'm
Herd
Googling
of
this because I believe...
turtles in a rainstorm. It sounds kind of tragic, doesn't it? Sounds
Yeah.
like they're all gonna die.
It's like in, what's it called? Blade Runner. He's like tears in the rain. It's like, we are all gone, like turtles in a rainstorm.
All of them say they're off like a herd of turtles. There's no one that adds the rainstorm part. So I feel like my
I mean,
mom
it doesn't
was
make
just a
any
sadist.
sense.
That
I've
was
never seen a bunch of turtles out because it rained. Like frogs, maybe. Heard of frogs in a rainstorm? Like, I can get that.
Well, turtles are faster in water, so like if it's raining, that means they can move more quickly, right?
Well, okay.
That's right.
If they're in a body of water, sure. If it's raining, no, that rain doesn't create a body of water. It's not like the rain falls from the sky and touches their skin and makes them more powerful.
It's like anti-kryptonite, but for turtles.
Yeah. It's the
There's
sun
actually
for
been
Superman, except it's rain for turtles.
There have actually been a lot of dead turtles near me right now, crossing the road and getting hit by cars. It's kind of sad.
Jesus.
What
Well,
the
my
fuck,
mom
dude?
sure would be happy.
Let's not use that as the
Big
cold
time.
open.
Big time turtle sadist.
It's like V2 podcast episode 2. So there's been a lot of dead turtles where I live.
No, it's cold open. That's how it starts. So there's been a lot of dead turtles nearby. Whatever the song is that's used. Oh, man.
Man. Lots of dead turtles. Alright. Let's get this
Alright.
shit off a stick.
Hello and welcome to the Voluntary Viewing Podcast, the only podcast that talks about movies, video games, television, and other pop culture stuff all in one setting. We're the only people to do that, ever. I'm Lucas DeRuyter and am joined by Andrew Clark and Ryan Holtz. Andrew, how are you doing today? We're learning.
I'm in a closet.
No comment.
So yeah, after listening to the previous episode, we realized we kind of did a really bad job of explaining who we are and what this podcast is about. So we're going to take a little time to do that today. I'm Lucas DeRuyter, graduated from UW-Madison last, May, like less than a month ago. Still sinking in. I have a background in writing, currently doing some freelance work and trying to get that to take off in one way or another. My interests include all kinds of pop culture stuff, and I think of the podcast, I have the most expertise when it comes to anime, manga, and all that weird Japanese stuff. Ryan, what are you about?
Hey everyone, I am Ryan Holtz. I am the third credited producer on this podcast. Very rightfully so. I've definitely put in the least amount of effort. I am also graduated from the University of Wisconsin. I believe that we all met probably about 15 minutes after I moved into my dorm the first year. And, we all kind of shared a lot of mutual interests. We realized that right away. We all loved Archer and Game of Thrones. I guess, to be fair, Andrew and Lucas already knew each other for a long time. So I'm the third wheel of this podcast. After graduating, I had a job lined up at a major broadcast network in Los Angeles. So I am currently living here, trying to make a name for myself in traditional media, which is an interesting world nowadays with modern disruptors such as Netflix and Hulu. But I've always been interested in creating and producing and all that sort of things. And I guess if I'm looking for my area of expertise in this podcast, it would be a lot of film, television, and mostly, I imagine, sports. I'll have the most say, although I don't know how relevant sports will be throughout this podcast. We just happened to have a topic on it last time, so we'll see how that goes throughout.
All right, I'm Andrew. I also graduated from UW-Madison a couple of weeks ago. Like Ryan said, we all met freshman year and kind of hit it off, and we've been involved in little projects ever since. I've known Lucas for a long time, grew up in the same town. My interests include politics, the environment, social progress, media of any sort of kind. Not really in a professional sense for the most part, but big fan of films, movies, video games, books, all that jazz. So I like to think that I bring sort of a everyman perspective to the podcast. And for clarification before, when I said that I was in a closet, no, I do not mean that I am a homosexual, but however, I am in a physical closet. Created my own little sound booth in here. It is very hot. I'm a hot, sweaty boy stuck in a closet.
Speaking of hot, sweaty boys, to give a little bit of our lore, I'm not going to say the name of the dorm that we were in freshman year, because that's how one of the 20 people who listened to the first episode of this podcast start tracking us down and doing God knows what to us. Our freshman year, we all lived on the same floor of our dorm, and whether in spite of or because of our actions, it eventually became known as the sex floor. And that
were those really because of our actions, though?
I don't know.
You can't.
I don't feel like we did anything to stop that from happening, so potentially.
I think it was because the dorm that we were in, that shall remain nameless, was the nerdiest, terrible dorm.
Yes.
That had the worst reputation, as nothing ever happens there and everyone there is really lame. And then we happen to be...
It was a very sheltered dorm.
Actually, we happen to be actually not that lame in comparison, which then made us, apparently gods of the dorm.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say the sex floor moniker was more in spite of us, simply, at least in my head, simply because we were not as sheltered as a lot of the other people. And so, comparatively, yeah, we were rock stars.
Yeah. We were doing hits of coke, just in everyone's dorm, having massive parties. We weren't, but in everyone else's heads, I'm imagining that's how it went down.
Just a couple of normal college kids.
Rock stars of terrified college freshmen. Oh, and this podcast is, if it hasn't been gleaned already, just our opportunity to nerd out about pop culture stuff, give our opinions on it, and then, kind of keep the friendships going as we kind of spread out and end up on, wherever the three of us end up.
Yeah, we also, if we've got any fans out there that want to reach out, anyone who's listening to the podcast wants to add their 2 cents, please feel free to contact us on our Twitter. I think Lucas put some links in the last episode. If he didn't, he'll add some to this one. we can get some fan involvement. We would really like to engage with other people, get their opinions, and make the podcast a little more interesting. So please feel free.
The Twitter's actually a little bit fucked up right now.
Oh no.
So I'm making the Twitter account, posting the first episode, posting the links to the mandatory viewing stuff. And then under the profile information, which was like a third complete, it's like, now here, add your birthday. So I'm like, oh, cool. I'll just like put the first episode of the podcast. So that way, when it's like, hey, how long have we been doing this? Hopefully 5 years down the line, it'll be like easy to check on. As soon as I finish entering the date, the screen immediately cuts out and goes to twitter.com is not allowed for anybody under 13 years old.
Oh my god.
Please send a valid photocopy or picture of some form of identification to prove you are not a child.
Oh god.
If you explain the situation to Twitter support, I'm sure they'll be okay with it. And they'll figure things out. But
I'm
still
1
waiting
week
on that.
old. Please give me a Twitter.
I'm still waiting on that email, but it'll get worked up. It'll get worked out, but it's just a little fucked up right now.
Have you ever listened to a podcast with hundreds of thousands of listeners and been like, man, I sure wish that I could talk to these guys? Well, you can't, so why don't you talk to us instead? This is your only opportunity, let's be honest. So,
we are going to get an email segment going once we have enough people willing to email us to have an email segment. And right now we are voluntaryviewing@gmail.com. So
ooh.
Any emails, go to there.
We got the original OG Gmail.
@gmail.com.
Yeah.
VOLUNTARYVIEWING @gmail.com for you spellaphobes out there.
And that is the @sign, not AT, just for clarification.
No, it's AT.
Right.
It's a
I'm
very
glad that we
special
established that our viewer
domain.
base are not literal infants.
Well, our podcast is on Twitter.
Apparently. Okay, do we want to move into news of the week?
Yeah, let's get started on the meat, what people come to Voluntary Viewing Podcast to listen to. Something they can't get anywhere else, a place where we talk about things that we just like.
There were a couple of innuendos in there, and I'm not sure how I feel about that.
There were no innuendos.
Innuendos
You
are
decide
on
at home.
purpose, right? Innuendos are on purpose and double entendres are accidental.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm
Andrew,
pretty
there are a
sure.
lot of double entendres in there.
There you go.
Okay. All right, Lucas, why don't you lead us off? Give us some of the big news of this last week.
Feel like we should start off with what is probably the biggest, most surprising, and weirdest story from last week. And that is that the Rosanne reboot / continuation is canceled. On Tuesday, following Roseanne Barr's racist comments on Twitter, where she called former Obama aide Valerie Jarrett, the offspring of the Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes, ABC canceled the Roseanne revival. And then she was later dropped by her talent agency. Ryan, I think you're most qualified to kind of explain just how something like this doesn't really happen ever.
I mean, it was... So I don't really want to say exactly where I work because I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. So I'll just say I work for a major United States broadcaster, and I won't say whether or not... I guess it would kind of give away how personal it is. If
You're fine.
But, basically it was like a nuclear bomb went off in our office, and just everyone was freaking out. People who didn't have anything to do with comedy, like there were people in daytime that were like, what is going on with Roseanne? Are you kidding me? There's people in specials who do like the Emmys and the Tonys for us that are just like, gossiping like, oh, I heard that, yeah, our talent agency is about to drop her. And like, it was just absolute insanity. Because, I mean, I actually first heard it, I think, from you. Although I had, I think there was one my coworkers that I was talking with, and he had mentioned that she had made a racist tweet. And I'm just like, yeah, that sounds pretty Roseanne to me. Like, that didn't really shock me.
Oh, another one.
Yeah, and then I think you guys had sent something in our group message, and I'm just like, I should probably see what this is. And I read it. I'm like, oh, that's a little bit bad even for Roseanne standards. And then I don't remember how much later it was. It had to have been like an hour and a half at the most. And I messaged you guys just like, they just canceled it. They canceled her goddamn show. Like, it was just gone. Literally the most successful new show of the entire season was gone within 2 hours of this single tweet, which was pretty impressive. Channing Dungey.
It was followed up by many other tweets post cancellation, and I think the conversation between us started when I saw that Roseanne said that she was going to not be on Twitter anymore. I said, oh, hey guys, like, Roseanne's not going to be on Twitter anymore. That's kind of weird. And then I don't think I went on the internet for an hour. I went to the gym or something. By the time I got back, the shit had hit the proverbial fan. And you said everyone in your office was freaking out. And at that point, Roseanne's show was canceled. She had been dropped. She had retweeted like hundreds of racist tweets and responses and that sort of thing. And Donald Trump had retweeted or had tweeted that he wanted an apology from ABC about people saying mean things to him. And it was like the entire day just felt very surreal. I didn't really understand what it meant because I wasn't involved in the TV industry in the way that you are. But the way that you described your office was pretty hilarious. But yeah, like I'd never heard of anything like this happening before.
Well, it's amazing because the last time it felt even markedly similar to this was the day after the Roseanne premiere when the ratings rolled in and everyone was like, it was over a 4 in the demo? Like, what the hell is going on? But even that paled in comparison to everyone. Just like, they just canceled what they basically sold their entire fall schedule on. And then they had to they're going to have to rework their entire fall schedule as a result of canceling their flagship show in a way.
Not to mention that even if Roseanne definitely fell off after the first couple of episodes and was only doing like maybe, I think I remember you saying like slightly above average ratings, which is just, something that happens. ABC still canceled what was probably a very profitable and successful show for them. And that's kind of, wow, they actually drew a line in the sand there. You don't, that's not a thing that major companies really do anymore.
Yeah, I totally expected just like sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just expected like an apology or some sort of letter from ABC, and then they were going to try to sweep it under the sand. But that didn't happen.
Well, also, I wouldn't even say slightly above average. I would say its numbers got cut in half by the end of the season, which is still very much above average. Like,
okay.
The only reason that it was kind of tempered is because it was getting beaten by NCIS in total viewers by the end of the season. But NCIS is one of the most, if not the, well, it's like top 5 most watched dramas on television. So getting beaten by NCIS in total viewers is not like you're getting shit on. So in reality, yeah, it was still a ridiculously successful breakout hit for them that they still canceled, which was insane. And I have to imagine that some of it, once again, I feel like listening back to the first podcast, most of my stuff has come back to business, but I have to imagine that they were predicting advertiser pullout, and this wasn't fully a moral stand by ABC. But I guess you never know. They definitely didn't have time to listen to advertisers, because there's no way the advertisers would have been able to contact them in the time period that it took them to cancel it. But I have to imagine they were predicting some at the very least.
So you think they were trying to avoid the fallout of, the bad publicity that would have followed, advertisers being pulled out and that sort of thing?
Yeah. I mean, I saw a million tweets in the short period of her outrage and her being canceled where there were people saying, like, your silence is deafening, ABC. Like, people were absolutely calling on them to take action already. So, and then when they finally did, everyone was like, oh shit. Like, I didn't think it was going to be that quick. So it was weird.
Do we want to
and then I don't know if you guys saw this later. I added it to the planning document. The Samantha Bee controversy a couple days later.
That's what I was going to bring up, yeah.
So I don't know if you want me to just go over that really quick or...
Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead.
Let's take it. Yeah, so basically Samantha Bee, she does a late night talk show. It's pretty notoriously anti-Trump, which I think there's different levels of late night hosts being anti-Trump, but pretty much everyone skews that way, it feels like. Mm-hmm. But hers is definitely one of the, if not the strongest opposer to Trump and his family in this case, where basically there's been a huge news story going on about the United States having lost a bunch of children, basically, which was really a weird story. And then Ivanka Trump had tweeted something with her kid saying, wow, I'm so happy that I have my kid with me, like right in the middle of that maelstrom. And it was an ignorant tweet, I would say. It wasn't very... not ignorant, it was tone deaf at the very least.
Yeah.
I don't know if it deserved, but then Samantha Bee, as she usually does, called her a feckless C word. Feckless, I had to look it up. I didn't know what it meant. Basically, is like, uncaring, tone deaf. She was describing her, but then she used the C word. And TBS, the thing is that TBS definitely approved that, the network that her show is on. They approved of that usage. And so there was obviously a ton of controversy. People thought she went too far, which I'm not disagreeing with them. It seemed a little bit out of left field, but then it just kind of snowballed, and eventually it came down to like, oh, if Roseanne's canceled, then she should be canceled, and people were completely ignorant of like the reality of the situation and the differences between the two situations, and it was a whole thing. So
Samantha Bee insulted somebody. Yeah, Samantha Bee insulted somebody because of a bad thing that they did. Roseanne insulted somebody using a term and expression that has been lobbied at people of color for hundreds of years and has a lot of racial overtones because of a thing that she is. And if you don't understand that difference, I don't know quite how to explain that these are two very, very different situations. And that, well, I don't know. I thought it was maybe like a bad or tasteless joke, a less than productive joke from Samantha Bee. It is nowhere near on the level of racial offensive and just unnecessary that Roseanne went to.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that. I think that people don't really get the differences between racism and maybe just being vulgar and insulting someone, because, like, neither are good. Being vulgar and insulting someone is not a good thing. Like, we should all agree that we should be nice to each other, but that's not really the reality that we live in. And I think that Samantha Bee, as a white woman, just insulting another white woman by using a term that insults women is nowhere near on the same sort of scale as a powerful, rich white woman insulting a woman of color that she does not know by using what are essentially racial slurs, because those two things will never be the same. And so while you can say, yeah, that's bad, like if someone said, we shouldn't allow people on TV that swear or insult anyone, and that's a position that you've held your entire life, then sure, go ahead and say that Samantha Bee's show should be canceled. But if you haven't stood by that the entire time, then I don't think you have the ability to compare these two situations.
And I think people are totally within their rights to call for a show's cancellation. Like, that you're always allowed to do that and voice your opinion that I don't think that this show should be on the air. But that doesn't mean that, like, the network has to listen to you. Especially in this case, where the network undoubtedly approved of this language being used. Like, they aired it. It's a thing. Whereas Rosanne was tweeting on her own accord, nothing to do associated with the network at all. Obviously, the network wouldn't approve of that language being used. So I just think it's such apples to oranges, and it was kind of amazing to me that people just kind of ignored it and basically made them completely equal. And I think I might feel a little stronger than you guys that her tweet was, or not her tweet, what she was saying on late night was really, really tasteless. I think that a lot of times...
I agree. I definitely think that's a thing she shouldn't have said. I just don't think that it's insulting in the way that, a racial slur is.
Yeah, I don't think you can compare the two. I'm just saying, like, I've always had this stance that I hate when people are criticizing administrations all the way back even to the Obama administration and into the Trump administration on just kind of superficial mistakes. Like, or like when someone calls Donald Trump orange or something like that. It's like, just like criticize. He has a lot of things that you can criticize about his policy or about his stances. Why are you criticizing appearance? And like, if people are criticizing Barack Obama for being black versus criticizing Barack Obama for utilizing drone strikes a little bit too haphazardly, like, I just feel like one of those is so much more legitimate than the other and is so much more productive and makes people engage in discourse versus just insulting basic things such as, oh, that was pretty tone deaf of you to post a picture of your child while this whole thing is going on in the background. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but also, they don't compare in my mind at all.
And this is colored by the weird dimension that the administration has a tendency to use unflattering terms to describe political opponents or political leaders that they don't care about. Trump and the administration calling Kim Jong-un Rocket Man, for example. It's like, I don't know. I guess, well, I think I agree with Samantha Bee on a lot of things. I didn't care for that joke, and I can see how, like, there are some problems with it and agree with you there, but this is all just so weird and dumb, and I just want to say that despite what the president has asked for, I don't think that Samantha Bee is going to be fired, and I don't think that her show is going to go away.
No, not in a million years, fair. And it honestly shouldn't. Like, if the network literally approved of this statement, and then they cancel her show based on something that they approved, that is such bullshit on another level. Yeah. Like, the network had to apologize because they were like, "Oh, we let this one slip." So, like, how could you fire or cancel a show based on something that you approved of? Maybe you're saying, "I want TBS to stop existing," which, sure, you can want that. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It's something you can want. Yeah.
One funny thing about this situation that's kind of fallen to the side. Well, and that is because of the Samantha Bee stuff, is that for maybe like a day or two, conservatives were calling because Roseanne got canceled, for Bill Maher's TV show to be canceled on HBO, thinking that this would be this is how we, like, get the left back for this. This is how we, like, make things equal. Not realizing that Bill Maher really has not been the voice of progressivism for like a decade now. And so, like, oh, you're asking for a thing that we would be willing to give up. That's, all right. And I don't know. I found that entertaining.
Yeah, but Bill Maher was such an interesting case when it happened, and HBO dealt with it the way that they felt fit. I don't if ABC had another talk show host that was left-leaning and insulting right-wing opponents at the same level as Roseanne was, and that show wasn't canceled, that's the only time where you could actually look at an even playing field and show bias. Whereas you're looking at two completely different companies with completely different media strategies. Disney is notorious for not putting up with controversy and HBO and Turner usually have been a lot more willy-nilly and not really caring how much controversy their shows might attract. HBO to an even bigger extent. So it's really just not comparable unless it's the same exact network, and these two things can be perfectly compared. So that's a whole thing.
Ryan, do you want to tell us about the Jack Johnson biopic before we talk about some video games?
Yeah, I just saw that our film...
What a great singer.
God damn it. God damn it. Don't you fucking dare. Basically, I saw that our film segment was completely empty, and I was like, there was some pretty fun film news recently. I guess fun was really a poor choice of words there. Jack Johnson's story was not particularly fun.
It's a very controversial life.
Yeah, controversial at his time. Nowadays, I like to think that he lived a pretty heroic life by modern standards. Basically, I don't know if anyone has seen the PBS documentary Unforgivable Blackness, but it is absolutely incredible, and it chronicles one of the greatest athletes to have ever lived, Jack Johnson. Definitely one of the best boxers to have ever lived. His career was notoriously cut short because he violated the Mann Act when he brought his white girlfriend across state lines, which was a crime in the Jim Crow era. And that was
super fucked up.
Yeah, it was kind of the end of his career. And then recently the Trump administration pardoned Jack Johnson for his crimes 100 years ago, which was something, probably a publicity stunt, but hey, it's a good move. I think there was no one opposing that, basically. So yeah.
Controversial may have been the wrong words for me to use. I mean, more like turbulent, maybe.
Yeah.
Contested.
During his life, he was one of the most interesting people who have ever lived. He was so just flippant to race politics and just flaunted his wealth in the face of white men, which was something that no one else on earth could have gotten away with, who was his skin color. It was absolutely incredible. He's such a cool guy, in all honesty. And he ate people alive in the boxing ring. Like, he was 100% better than basically everyone he ever faced, and it showed. My favorite story, this is getting off on a tangent, my favorite story from Unforgivable Blackness was when he finally got to fight the white champion who had been avoiding fighting him because they didn't want a black man to be the world champion boxer. It was filmed in Australia. It was like they had cameras and everything, and when it became clear, it was like something in the second round that Jack Johnson was just toying with him and was like gonna just absolutely demolish him. They actually turned the cameras off so that there wouldn't be footage of black people being better than white people. And it was so just poignant. It was such a like crazy moment, and yeah, he kicked the shit out of him, and like of course they contested it, and they were like, oh no, he didn't win, all that stuff. It was craziness. But yeah, it came out this week that Ridley Scott's production company is now attached to it's basically a loose adaptation of Jack Johnson's life story, and they're going to make a pretty kick-ass movie, I imagine, based on his life story, and I was just fascinated with Jack Johnson ever since I watched Unforgivable Blackness, so I don't know. I guess I don't know how familiar you guys are with him or what your thoughts are, but it's great.
I love his song Better Together.
God damn it, Andrew.
I was totally unfamiliar with him until I saw you posted that in the doc, and then I did a quick Google research on him. Yeah, phenomenal story, phenomenal guy. I hope the biopic is good. I see Sylvester Stallone is attached to it. Creed was amazing, so if they can... I think it's in good hands. I guess is where I'm at. Andrew, you have any thoughts?
I'm not very familiar with the life of Jack Johnson, or really boxing as a sport entirely. But, I mean, everything that you described, Ryan, and like what you know about his life, it makes me go, wow, yeah, that's gonna make a great movie. Like that story has already written itself, and like there's gonna be, plenty of ups and downs and twists and turns. It's gonna be tragic. It's gonna be inspiring. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go see that movie. You've got Ridley Scott and Sylvester Stallone tied to it, two, great members of the film community who have created works that I thoroughly enjoy. So yeah, like I'm gonna watch it.
Did you guys see that for the Freddie Mercury coming out? They're leaving out all the AIDS stuff.
Yeah,
I didn't see that. I had heard that because Freddie Mercury was pretty notoriously bisexual, that they were kind of ignoring any interaction, like any romantic relationships with men that he had.
Yeah, they're
that was,
focusing
like,
more on his like lifetime partner who was a woman.
Yeah, so that people were kind of upset about that. I know that the reason that Sacha Baron Cohen dropped out was because like half the movie was going to be about like the band Queen and how they kept going even after Freddie Mercury died, and Sacha Baron Cohen was like, this should probably be the Freddie Mercury movie. Like,
yeah,
let's be honest, no offense, Queen, but you had one more defining member than the rest of you. So yeah, that movie sounds like it's either gonna be decent or terrible.
Yeah. Did you see Rami Malek's like face in the trailers? How they have like that mouthpiece on him, and so his mouth is just fucking huge.
Yeah.
It's really off-putting.
Movie magic.
Yeah, I love Rami Malek and everything.
Me too. I'm a
Mr.
big
Robot.
fan, but like he looks so fucking weird in that movie.
Jesus. I mean, I think he looks relatively like Freddie Mercury, more so than other people might. I think Sacha Baron Cohen might have looked a little more like him, but who knows?
I think regular Rami Malek looks a little bit more like Freddie Mercury than Rami Malek with that mouthpiece, though.
Than Jawbone Rami Malek.
Yeah.
That's what we'll call
his upper mouth is huge.
Yeah. I wonder if they had him wear that while he was recording, like laying down the music tracks.
God, I hope not.
That would be off-putting.
Okay. We are a serious podcast, and we're about to talk about the most serious thing ever: video games. Bethesda did a really interesting promotional stunt that was definitely unexpected, being a week and a half out from E3, where they put the Please Stand By logo that they have associated with the Fallout series on their Twitch channel, just going live for about 24 hours on Twitter. I think it was also on Twitch.
Some Twitch streamers streamed themselves, like, watching the Twitter account with the Please Stand By. I remember there was, like, a Twitch stream of... It was some video game news website. They put, like, a hand puppet of one of the Fallout shelter boys, like you know what I'm talking about, the Vault Boys, and they just like played around with that for a while. But no, I don't think they actually streamed it on Twitch. Maybe I'm wrong. We're splitting hairs at this point. Doesn't really matter.
It was live streamed.
Fallout 76 is a game that is coming out. It's a full game. Not really what any of us expected. We talked about it the day before the trailer was actually released, when everyone was kind of speculating on what it was going to be. Most of that speculation came down to like a Fallout 3 remaster, a Fallout New Vegas remaster, maybe an Obsidian project of like another Fallout spinoff. But no, we're going to get a full-on Bethesda-made Fallout game, which is not going to be part of the main series as far as we can tell. It's going to be a lot different in the way that it plays. Lucas, why don't you tell us some of the leaked and or speculated details on what Fallout 76 is going to be? Because it's kind of wild, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, this is coming from Kotaku's Jason Schreier, who is really good at getting sources in the video game industry, and 99 times out of 100, the articles that he writes about this stuff are accurate. In this case, he has 3 anonymous sources, either from Bethesda or closely related to it, to the point where he is confident saying that Kotaku can confirm that this next game will be a survival RPG similar to DayZ and Rust.
An online survival RPG, we might add, so pretty
multiplayer,
much
yeah.
confirmed with multiplayer. Which is
Bethesda doesn't have any history doing, so that's
No.
pretty interesting to say the
even
least.
even the Elder Scrolls Online is made by a different developer than Bethesda. They've subcontracted out to a different developer, and so seeing Bethesda kind of take the reins on this one is really exciting, maybe a little frightening, but yeah, like, can you imagine, a la Rust or Ark Survival, the Fallout world and like online interactions with your friends and that sort of thing, with a Fallout leveling system and RPG elements? Pretty exciting for me. We're all big Fallout fans, but what do you guys think?
I'm just worried that by far my least favorite part of Fallout 4 was the You cut out there, sorry. By far my least favorite part of Fallout 4 was the settlement builder feature that they had in it, and this sounds like it's maybe going to be that, but an entire game.
Yeah, and also, I know Lucas, as a fan of the Metal Gear series, there was a recent entrant into the multiplayer platform named Metal Gear Survive, which I'm not going to go too far, but one of the worst games made of the last year.
Ryan, we don't talk about that. As a member of the pretty in it with the Metal Gear fandom, we don't talk about that.
So I can imagine that you might feel a little burned by properties that you love trying to make multiplayer versions that are a little different.
But I also understand how, from a business decision, this is definitely a thing Bethesda wants to do, since Elder Scrolls Online is making them so much money. And I don't know, I guess if there's like an online game that they make that I don't play a ton or necessarily care for, that still makes them a lot of money, but then that funds the next Elder Scrolls game or some other single player one-off game that they really seem to be into right now, then yeah, go for it. I'm game.
Cool shit.
Yeah.
All right, you guys ready to talk about the Pokemans?
You're going to have to explain the Pokemans to me as you would to a child, because I'm not woke with Pokemon news, but that's good, because you can just pretend that I am our audience and that you're going to explain all the juicy details. Let's say 9 years old. Someone who's played their first Pokemon game but is old enough to realize
that's a little difficult for me, since when I was 9 years old, I knew everything about Pokemon. But okay, I'll do my best. So kind of in the vein of Bethesda's weird announcements, considering how close we are to E3, there was a big Pokemon press conference that I don't think was live streamed. I think this was all through Twitter, but still got some juicy nuggets out of it. One of which is a game that's out right now for the Switch and then coming to mobile called Pokemon Quest, where all the Pokemon are cute and cubey, which they say it's free to start. I don't think it's necessarily for me. I'm not going to look into it too much. But then we also got an announcement of the next generation of Pokemon games coming to the Switch in 2019, and also that there's a crossover game with Pokemon Go coming to the Switch this year called Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, which seems to be a hybrid of kind of Pokemon Go mechanics and then main game Pokemon mechanics, which, I don't know, it seems like it's going to be shaking things up a little bit and that it'll be a lot of fun.
When I first saw the announcement trailer, I was like, oh shit, I like Pokemon, and oh shit, I've had fun playing the Switch in the sometimes that I have been able to. And then as it went on, I was like, oh, this is going to be pretty watered down. Like, I'm not that excited anymore. So
it's casual as fuck.
That was my own opinion. Yeah, like this is not going to be a Pokemon Switch game that has some cool Go functionality. It's going to be Pokemon Go Plus, if that. So I wasn't too intrigued. The Pokeball shit made me want to just throw myself out a window.
Say, hey, I thought guys, that was cute.
Do you want a Pokeball that vibrates? Oh wow, look, the colors change. Woo! Like I just thought that was so dumb, and I couldn't help but let out a little bit of like a guffaw, as it were.
I think this is also a little bit of a money move, because if they can get half of the 5% of, at its height, people still playing Pokemon Go to buy a Switch, that's how many millions of Switches they just sold. But yeah, I don't know. It's a thing. I'll probably buy it, play it. It doesn't look like it'll take more than like 20 hours to complete. So I don't know. Might be fun. Might be interesting.
I mean, they're probably shooting for what? More of like 100th? Like at this point, like Pokemon Go burned so brightly, so quickly. The amount of downloads on that, I cannot imagine will actually translate into users at this point.
I mean, I still see people online talking about it, so maybe the community is bigger than what I have any knowledge of, but it seems like there are a lot of people still into it, and good for them for liking and being into something, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
But then the bigger Pokemon news, weirdly enough, because it's not about a new thing, it's about an old thing. It's actually a really interesting story. Back in 1997, at what is a Space World event, which used to be where Nintendo showed off their video games, there was a demo of Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver shown there that is way different from what the actual games ended up being. It was on the Game Boy rather than the Game Boy Color, had different Pokemon in it than what was actually in the actual game. And for literal decades, wow, it was this weird mythic thing. And then someone got a copy of that demo, put it online, and people have just been going wild digging into it, and are finding just the craziest shit. One Pokemon just used to be a gun.
What?
Yeah. There's a Pokemon called Remoraid, and it's just like a fish, but in the beta, it was like still mostly a fish, but it had like the revolver part of a revolver on it.
Okay.
Yep, and then it evolves into an octopus called Octillery, and for decades it was, why does a fish evolve into an octopus? Oh, it's because in the beta version of the game, the octopus is a tank. So it's a gun evolving into a tank, and that is pretty great.
Good God.
And then
I don't know
why
if Andrew was here for this screaming condom.
yeah, we had a little bit of technical
I
trouble.
heard part of that, yeah.
Good God. That is incredible. I mean, we think that they got lazy recently with like the ice cream cone condom. I almost said ice cream cone condom. No, the ice cream cone Pokemon. Like they've been out of ideas for 20 years now.
I don't know, man.
Pokemon was a pair of old shoes.
I don't know, man. I look at a couple of these designs and I'm like, well, you know, these do look, I could see, like, maybe these would be, like, fake mon or something that just people came up with. But then I'm also like,
Fake
nope,
mon.
these were going to be Pokemon at one point. But yeah, that is just a nice thing that exists in the world, and I'm glad that it does. And on that high note, let's move to the breakout. Not the breakouts. Let's move to the group chat. Gonna fix that in post. So, this is a movie that came out a while ago that we all saw at different times, but we're really into, and it's coming out on Blu-ray now. I saw a commercial for it, and that's what made me think of it. So this is technically relevant. We are a relevant podcast by talking about this. And that's the movie Annihilation.
Yeah, I think Ryan was the first of us to see it. And I know it's coming out on Blu-ray. I was really surprised that it didn't just go straight to Netflix, since their whole international distribution scheme was that everyone outside of the United States could watch it on Netflix instead of in theaters, which was like kind of a good thing because they got it earlier and it was on Netflix, but also kind of a bad thing since it's a movie that, in order to get the full experience, I think has to be watched on like a big screen with really good sound equipment. And so I feel like people in Canada and China and the rest of the world watching this movie may not have gotten the full experience. But yeah, like I thought it was going to go straight to Netflix in the United States and didn't. Weird industry choice there. But super cool. Super fucking weird. Like, really, really scary at certain points. Just, I really enjoyed watching.
Yeah, the moment I came out of that theater, I think I texted you guys saying I saw the weirdest movie that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I recommended it, though, at the same time. And it's such great world building, and there's some incredible body horror going on throughout. Reminds us of Last of Us a little bit, which is it's our mandatory viewing. I may be downloading that on my PS3 right now to get ready to play that for mandatory viewing. But yeah, it was just really great. Natalie Portman was fantastic. All the other actors and actresses were relatively forgettable, but you know, what can you do?
I felt a little bit differently about the supporting cast, but it's kind of besides the point because it was the Natalie Portman show. She was the biggest part of that movie, and she was great.
Yeah, so loved it.
Yeah, I really dug it. I guess the only criticism I have of it is just a weirdly personal one and super nitpicky, since it's essentially, well, if I were making this movie, this is what I would have done here. But regardless, that very last shot of the movie where it's the Natalie Portman talking to...
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Big spoilers. Yeah. It's Natalie Portman talking to probably fake Oscar Isaac. And then they're in a hospital room, and the camera is turning to get like I think it's like a 90-degree shot of them moving from point A to point B. And then in that are two breaks between the glass panels. I really would have liked it if between the second and third break, Oscar Isaac shifted to that weird human approximate alien thing that we saw earlier in the movie. And then after the third break shifted back to looking like Oscar Isaac. I thought that would have been really cool. But
I think it would have been cool. I think it would have been a little predictable because that's what, like we talked about it after we saw it, that's what all of us kind of thought was going to happen. And I'm glad they didn't do it because it would have been really predictable. Not that it wouldn't have been enjoyable, but the entire movie was kind of based on the audience not knowing what the fuck was going to happen next, because it was so out there, so high concept, and like every single like plot development in that movie, I was like, oh my god, wow, did not see that coming. So I'm glad that they didn't do something that predictable there. I'm surprised you didn't say something else, Lucas, because you told me when we left your biggest criticism was, and I don't think this statement has ever been said before in the history of humankind, let it be known, that after seeing Annihilation, Lucas said, man, I wish there was more body horror in that movie.
I had that opinion because I thought the movie was hinting that Natalie Portman was going to attach another character's arm onto her body after losing her arm somehow. Like, two characters in that movie, like, had the, like, it turned out that two characters in the movie had the same arm tattoo, and I
don't think they had the same arm tattoo. I think they just both had black tattoos on their arms.
I thought they did, and there was, like, a weird scene in it where they, like, kind of Natalie Portman, like, it wasn't super obvious, but she was like displaying that for a little bit, and I thought that's where they were going with it after another character was displaying that too for a little bit, like the camera lingering on it kind of. But I don't know, that's where I kind of went in my head, and I guess it's just like I don't know, that movie was really, really great for what it was. I think it achieved pretty much everything it set out to do. And I guess maybe the gas could have been pumped a little more in a couple of places. But that also draws a line between it being like, wow, that was really unexpected, really like something different than what I had thought going into it, versus, boy, they took that in a strange direction, and I don't know if I care for it. And if that's the line they were towing, they were definitely on the successful side of it, and I don't know if changing anything helps or hurts that. So that's where I'm at.
All right.
Ryan, any closing thoughts on Annihilation?
Oh, sorry. Thought we were done.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been a while now since I've seen it, and all I remember is positive things, and that I really recommend that everyone find a way to show it or to see it in theaters, which might be impossible now, but who knows, it might be brought back for certain venues and everything like that. And if you get the opportunity, even if it takes a little bit of a drive or something, highly recommend it. I don't know if the experience will be able to be recreated in a home viewing setting, even with pretty high-end home theaters. I'm not sure. So
I'm gonna see if I can get my hands on it again. I don't know if I'm going to buy the Blu-ray, but I'll try to rent it. Maybe if it does come out on Netflix at some point, I'm gonna try to watch it again on my home TV, just for this reason, to see if it does hold up without being on a big screen, without big sound. But yeah, feeling how visceral the movie was in that theater, I definitely would agree with you that it's probably not going to hold up as well, but who knows?
I think there might be something to watching, I guess this movie is closer to a horror than anything else, watching like a horror movie at home by yourself in the dark that also has a pretty personal impact that is definitely different from watching a movie in a movie theater, but also getting that kind of immediacy. So maybe you're fine watching it at home in the dark on a stormy night if you want to go that route, but nah, my 2 cents.
All right, I think the next thing that we're going to talk about are the things that we are currently watching. Last week, we talked about everything from Avatar: The Last Airbender to Season 1 of Family Guy for both of those weird reasons. And even as far as HBO programs, or not HBO programs, but programs about different NFL teams being told in a almost cinematic format. This week, Lucas has a couple of things he wants to talk about. Ryan and I will chime in with a few other things that we're currently watching. But Lucas, why don't you start us off?
No, but Andrew, you have to say the name of it so that it can trigger the transition music.
Well, the reason that I didn't say it is because you last time when we transitioned to the new section, you said breakouts instead of group chat.
But I corrected myself. Now you have to say it again.
Welcome to Breakout!
Okay, so I am halfway through the first season of Arrested Development. Better than season 4, but still feels wholly unnecessary to me. Season 1 to 3 were aired, I believe, on Fox. Really, really popular. Kind of ended after those 3 seasons, but then people who were way into it, a little bit of a cult classics thing. Got a 4th season on Netflix that was just not good. Had some moments, but was not good overall. And so now they're doing a season 5, and it's fine so far. It's definitely picked up more in the episodes 4 and 5 than episodes 1 to 3. Yeah, it's fine.
How big of a fan are you of the series? Because, like, for me, I've only watched the first season and part of the second season. I'm kind of working my way through it.
So I binged all of it over the last winter break. I definitely liked it. I think some parts of it have aged poorly. Like, there's kind of a running joke where they're just making fun of a teenage girl's appearance, and that's not super great in 2018, I think. But I like the style of the show a lot. It's pretty good. I don't think it's like Seinfeld caliber or anything like that, but it was a good show. Really,
to be fair to the show, Bland Anne, it wasn't just about her appearance.
No, yeah, I get that.
Her as a character was supposed to be like so hilariously nothing. Like, it was, I personally like the joke, so maybe I'm giving it too much credit, but
no, I totally understand that reading of it, but I was a little like, oh, that's kind of cringy. Oh, and especially Buster in the first couple episodes, that was really like, it seemed like he had more of a maybe developmental thing than like he was just like a really mama's boy. But yeah, they lead more into the latter going forward after the first couple episodes, and that I got on board for. But yeah, season 5 is just okay. Still doesn't really feel necessary though, since I felt season 3 ended really, really strongly, and everything afterwards is just kind of ancillary. But yeah, something to watch. It's okay.
That's good to know then. Maybe after season 3 I'll give it a stop.
You'll be able to tell that in the writer's room they were like, this is it for the show. We are done here, and everything that happens afterwards is not something they planned for, not something they were expecting.
Good to know.
So what are you guys checking out?
Andrew, you got anything pressing?
Well, I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week. Now I can say that I'm, as of the recording of this podcast, fully caught up with Archer, Danger Island, fully caught up with last week's episode of Westworld. Still enjoying the hell out of both of those. One thing that I have to say about Archer, Danger Island is that it hasn't felt like it was paced weird at all. It felt like it was paced very well until I saw in the episode listing that there are only 2 more episodes in the season. There's only 8 episodes this season. They did the same thing last season. It feels like it should be more of a 10-episode season. But yeah, like I was really enjoying it. I thought, oh yeah, this is all playing out in perfect time. But right now it feels like it's about, like it's getting to the halfway mark of the storyline. But there's only 2 episodes left in the season. So not really sure how that's going to wrap up. Because it seems like there's still a lot of loose ends. A lot of things that are going to probably come together at one point, and it's not going to feel as satisfying as it should. But who knows? I also, for those of you who are aware of how the most recent seasons have been playing out, Archer has, at least they didn't really address it at the beginning of the season, but last season, which was Archer Dreamland, was told, there's a story told under the premise of Archer, who was shot and basically drowned in the end of season 7, is in a coma, and the entire storyline that played out where he's a private detective in Los Angeles in the 40s, that's all like his coma dream, and they didn't preface that at all this season, but it's kind of assumed that's what's going on, that it's his coma dream. It's another storyline playing out inside of his own head, because the characters are different. Like, everyone has the same name for the most part. Everyone has the same voice actor, pretty much very, very similar personalities to how they've been portrayed the last couple of seasons, but totally different storyline, different characters. But yeah, so I'm kind of interested to see if they're going to finally address that at all this season. Is this just its own thing, or is Archer still in the coma? Season 10, the next season, is the last season that has been kind of ordered in advance, and it can kind of be assumed that season 10 will be the final season. I'm going to be sad to see it go, but it's been around for a while. You can't really expect a show like that to stay around for 30 years. But yeah, it kind of seems weird that the season is going to be done in 2 episodes when it feels like the story's getting more to like the halfway point.
Andrew, in your description of the season, you left out the fact that Krieger is now a talking parrot named Crackers.
Yeah,
and
God damn it.
And that they made Pam hot again. Those are very important things to bring up.
Okay, let's go with that. Pam is, and don't want to yuck anyone's yum, Pam is like a 6'6", just totally shredded sidekick to Archer, and it's great. Like, I love their relationship. I'd say that when most people think of hot Pam, they think of Archer Vice, where she gets addicted to cocaine and loses like 100 pounds. But yeah, sure, let's go with that.
All right, Ryan, what are you checking out?
I haven't been really. I finished the first season of All or Nothing, or not the first season, the most recent season of All or Nothing. So I haven't really had a chance to go too crazy on media consumption. Been watching the NBA finals and everything like that. So yeah, you can cut me out.
You're fine. And actually, we should probably wrap this. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna just chime in one last thing, and I didn't really want to talk about it in Breakout since I'm not very far into it, and I can't really give my opinion on it as a whole. But I recently started watching the 2nd season of Riverdale, which I enjoyed the first season of Riverdale a lot, partly because it's better than it should be, but also because it's for basically an Archie tale told on the CW. It's fucking wild. Like, it's absolutely bonkers. And not too many spoilers, for the audience and for, the other members of this podcast.
I do plan on watching it.
Season 2 has escalated farther than I thought it would. As crazy as the first season was, and like what these characters are, Season 2 has done a very good job of keeping that gas pedal to the fucking floor. Not too many spoilers, but so far Archie is now doing drugs and he bought a gun. That's 2 episodes in.
Are they still doing the thing where like actual interesting stuff is happening, but then they have to take a break so Jughead can learn how to be a better person, or Archie can get some self-confidence, or have they kind of done away with that?
I mean, they've definitely done the subplots in the episodes, but it ties more into the main storyline than what the previous season did. So I appreciated that. The subplots that are happening are a direct result of what's happening in the main storyline, and it seems like so far the subplots have the potential to play a bigger role in the season as it goes on. The way that certain people are involved with them. But yeah, that's all I have to say about Riverdale. Not much of an opinion to go off of because I need to watch more of it. But if you guys want to just be absolutely floored because this shit doesn't make any sense, but it also makes a lot of sense, watch Riverdale.
It's on the backlog for me, and I'm glad you say that they're doing away with some of that stuff because I absolutely hated the parts of the show in season 1 that were like, well, we got to take a break from investigating this murder because this girl wrote a sad poem in English class and might be depressed, so we should look into that.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, let's move on to the wrap-ups. Do you guys have any updates for our mandatory viewing? I know that our deadline isn't until the end of the month, but I've started a little bit on Ryan's cut downs. Gotta say, it's a super weird experience watching what is, as you described perfectly, essentially an entire episode of a TV show, an entire narrative, cut down into 3 or 4 minutes. Super weird. You're right, it does play like a trailer with like the music and the editing, but it also like completely finishes up the storyline that, was started in the first, 30 seconds.
Yeah. Well, trailers generally try to hide plot details. The cut downs kind of have to tell everything because the audience, advertisers, need to know what the show's about. So, yeah you kind of get the entire first episode.
You say
Anything
that
happens,
You say that, but I saw the trailer for the new Purge movie before Deadpool 2, and I saw the entire movie from that 1.5-minute trailer.
That is true. It did feel a lot like that. And when I watch trailers for older movies from like the 70s and 80s, there's definitely a lot more of that. Specifically, the example that always sticks with me is Jaws. When I saw the theatrical trailer for Jaws, like the original one, they basically give every detail, until like the last 10 minutes of the movie.
I haven't started the cut downs yet. That's on the to-do list after I finish up Arrested Development. And my PlayStation 4 is 7 hours away from finishing downloading Last of Us.
You could have just borrowed it from me.
I'm currently 4 hours away from finishing downloading Last of Us.
You also could have borrowed it from me.
I have it.
Either
I
of
bought
you could have borrowed it.
I already had the game. I'm just re-downloading it because I had removed it.
Okay. Yeah, no. Lucas is downloading his copy off the PS4 marketplace, and I think he's been downloading it for 2 straight days.
Whereabouts?
It's a big download.
No. Either of you guys watch Redline yet?
I have not. I've been waiting for a good break in my schedule. Sorry about that. Been waiting for a good break in my schedule. It's been pretty crazy here the past couple of days. I'm in the process of trying to find a new place to live, starting a new job, getting all the post-college shit taken care of. But I promise you I will watch it because it does seem pretty interesting.
You don't have to take drugs before you watch that movie, but it might be a better movie if you do.
All right, I will remember that.
I am kind of waiting, to be honest, on both of them. Mm-hmm. I want it to be a little fresher for the segment.
That's fair.
So by next week, I might have started Last of Us and maybe given thought to watching it, but I might be waiting a little bit before I get into them.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to share a Google Doc with the both of you. That's just the notes I'm taking while going through this stuff.
Yeah. I definitely, at least for cut downs, notes are probably going to be important. Otherwise, it's just going to be a bunch of show titles. And titles aren't always perfectly representative.
A part of me thinks that you're outsourcing this to Andrew and I somehow for your work.
Oh yeah, we're just we're a think tank that you're getting opinions from.
Well, where I work, actually, we kind of have that. It's called Script Club, and we read all the new scripts for every network. So, I've already done that, had that outsourced by version of every single person giving their thoughts.
Wait, do you read them together and assign people parts?
No.
Oh.
That would be cool, though. No, we don't have enough time. That would be like an hour per script. We can't do that. No, we all read them in our own time whenever we have downtime at work or at home after work, and then come together on a day and talk about them and compile our thoughts for all the executives. Send them out.
Oh, it still sounds like fun.
No, it's a blast. One of my favorite parts of my job so far.
All right. Well, this has been the second episode of the Voluntary Viewing Podcast. I'll come up with some dumb title while I'm editing this together. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to, or whatever's appropriate for whatever platform you're viewing this on. Still trying to get this on Apple Podcasts, but that's a little bit of a pain in the ass. So hopefully
Apple Podcasts give us money.
Just let us be on your platform, really. And then if it's working by the time you're listening to this, go check us out on Twitter. Follow us there at V2_podcast. And I don't know, do you guys want to say where they can find us online? Or do you have anything to plug or anything like that?
I'm pretty social media dark. I don't post too much, so.
I don't either. I'm not super active on my own stuff, but maybe in the future, if we get a bigger fan base that wants to engage with us, I will change that.
Well, okay, I don't want to be the odd man out then. So, yeah. I'm Lucas.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Ryan.
Thanks for watching, and we will see you next week.